All right, if everybody could take their seats, we are going to begin. Thank you for joining us for this morning's Good Morning Truckee. It is May, I do believe, so welcome to spring. It's nice out there, and today we have a presentation, Rivers and Shorelines Insights and Updates on Our Waterways. We're going to have 4 speakers and a nonprofit. Michele, Prestowitz, the Executive Director of the Truckee River Watershed Council, Colin West, Founder and CEO of Clean Up the Lake, Mary Ellen Benier, Co-Founder and Programs Manager of Headwaters Science Institute, and Missy Mohler, the Executive Director of Sierra Watershed Education Partnerships, SWEP, and the nonprofit spotlight will be Debbie Collette, Operations Director with One at a Time. And before we begin, as always, we'd like to thank our sponsors. Presenting sponsors are Kelly Brothers Painting and Tahoe Forest Healthcare System. The latte sponsors are Town of Truckee, PT Revolution, Schaefer's Mill Ski and Golf and Lake Club, Moonshine Inc., Tahoe Truckee Media, Truckee Tahoe Unified School District, Sierra Sun 101.5, Truckee Tahoe Radio, Porter Simon Law Offices, and Auerbach Engineering. The Cappuccino sponsors are Tahoe Truckee Community Foundation, Gold Ring Travel, Boreal Mountain Resort in Woodward, Tahoe, East River Public Relations and Marketing, JKAE, Tykert, and Trout Creek Outfitters. The espresso sponsors are Mountain Hardware and Sports, Mount Lincoln Construction, Tahoe Dave's, Peak Digital Studio, Dixon Realty, LP Insurance Services, Contractors Association of Truckee Tahoe, Martis Valley Mobile Notary, the Lift Co-work Conference and Wellness Center, and as always, we'd like to thank the staff and the ambassadors of the Chamber for putting this on, and the town for having us here, and Rory and the team at Tahoe Truckee Media for handling the AV. All right, so we'll go around the room. I am Raven Whittington. I'm an attorney at Porter Simon Law, Sierra Injury Lawyers, and I am the chair of the board of the Chamber of Commerce. And so, Jan, why don't we start with you?
Jan Zabriskie, Truckee Town Council and the town's River Revitalization Committee.
Louise Zabriskie, Board, Friends of the Truckee Library, New Library Project.
Deb Ryan, Truckee.
Mighty Peacock of Moonshine.
Ernie?
Yeah, Ernie Grossman, supporter of the library.
Right.
Kathleen Egan on the board of the Friends of the Truckee Library, and we are all about bringing a new library to Truckee.
Excellent. Let's go back. Chris, your table.
I'm Kaylee, and I am the Communication Engagement Manager for Todd Truckee Community Foundation.
Chris Tennant, Mount Lincoln Construction and Cat Board.
Andrea Lackey, Design.
Katie?
Katie, Truckee Sanitary District.
Scott Ferguson at Trout Creek Outfitters.
Eric?
Eric Goldring Travel.
Ian Birchhausen, High West Law.
Debbie Collette, One at a Time.
Sean Kapoff, One at a Time.
Kelsey Kapoff, One at a Time. Karen Freestead, Educator, retired.
Hi, my name's Trisha. I'm the Membership and Programs Manager for the Truckee Chamber of Commerce.
And I'm Rutha Carlson. I'm Adult Programming Manager at the Truckee.
Ruth Garrissey with the Truckee Chamber Officer.
Missy Mohler with Sierra Watershed Education Partnerships, or SWEP.
Mary Ellen Benier, Headwaters Science Institute.
Michele, Prestowitz, Truckee River Watershed Council.
Colin West, Clean Up the Lake.
All right, thank you. Did I forget anybody? Without further ado, then, we're going to start with Michele Prestowitz, the Executive Director of the Truckee River Watershed Council. Welcome, Michele.
Good. Good morning, everyone. I hope you all had your coffee. So I'm Michele Prestowitz. I'm the Executive Director of the Truckee River Watershed Council. Glad to speak with you about rivers and shorelines this morning. So the mission of the Truckee River Watershed Council is to bring the community together to protect, enhance, and restore the Truckee River watershed. So the reason we need to do that is that our river is actually designated as polluted by both the state of California and the federal EPA. So it's polluted with sediment. There's basically excess sediment and dirt coming down from the hillsides and essentially clogging our riverways. It's affecting habitat, it's affecting water quality. So, these are things, not only does that happen naturally, sometimes that's good. You want the right amount of sediment to come in. But through all of our historical impacts, railroads, grazing, highways, and then as well as the modern impacts, like the buildings that we're in right now, those all have an effect on our landscape. And so that means there's an excess of sediment going into our waterways. Now, we all need to live and work here. We're all here because we love this environment. But how do we live within it? How do we minimize our impact? And how do we coexist with nature? So I don't know if some of you might remember Mike Stoudemire. He's the former general manager at the North Star Community Services District, and he was very clear that without a healthy watershed, we have nothing. So a watershed is essentially a bowl. If you drop a drop of water on the top rim of the bowl and it rolls into the bowl, that's within our watershed. If it rolls out, if you spill your morning, the milk in your morning cereal and it goes the other way, that's going into the other watershed, right? So the American, the Yuba, that's where, up at Donner Summit, we're looking at the rim of our bowl. So within that watershed, we're talking about biodiversity. So the forests, meadows, wetlands, streams, and the wildlife that lives within it. We kind of take those things for granted. Water quality, drinkable, swimmable, fishable, that's actual words that are coming from federal legislation to keep our watersheds healthy. Water supply, many of you have heard that the Truckee River provides 85% of the drinking water to Reno and downstream interests. So we need to keep it clean so that they're drinking clean water downstream, so that they don't have to be doing extra efforts to clean it up. Safety, of course. This is something that I think we've all had growing recognition of in the past several years. Wildfires, of course, 2020, we had all of these fires raging around us. So now we have this heightened awareness and understanding of how wildfire impacts us. If you have a healthy watershed, you are not at as much risk for wildfire and things like flooding, those extremes of climate change that we're all facing. And then finally, and this is another thing that I think we're having a growing recognition of, how our economy, particularly here in Truckee and the Tahoe area, it's recreation based. You need to take care of this area so that we keep our economy going. As trout outfitters, you guys understand the combination between, our economy and a healthy watershed. So the Watershed Council, we work in the areas, we call them buckets. Our buckets are projects, policies, and people. So on projects, on your bottom left, that is a view of the Martis Wildlife Area. That is in the middle. That is one large restoration project that we did back in 2019, restoring 70 acres of wetland and 2 miles of stream. What I love about it is not only is that 70 acres, but it's in the middle of other restoration projects that we've done. So the Middle Martis was just upstream from there. Then we have Truckee Meadows is just downstream from there. When we connect all of these pieces of restoration projects, that means we're creating interconnectedness. So, wildlife like the willow flycatcher, like these little yellow guys, we all love them, but they have a really short migration. They have a really short span of what they can fly. When we connect these wildlife corridors, they are actually increasing. So this is always exciting to me. They did some research several years ago, and they found that within the entire Sierra, looking at willow flycatcher, one of the only places where there was increasing populations of this endangered species, the willow flycatcher, was in Parazzo Meadows, where we did a restoration. We've done a series of restorations between 2010 and I guess 2018. We did 3 phases of restoration. We're actually increasing these endangered species. That's exciting. On the policy side, we are working to increase flows coming out of Boca, Stampede, and Prosser. So why does that matter? Well, because, as Kathleen has often said, our rivers and our streams, it's not a spout and a spigot, right? These are live streams. These are live ecosystems. So instead of turning off the faucet for flood control for good reasons, and how our dams and our systems have been developed, but if you turn that off, we've had times where literally there have been fish stranded in dry creek beds. So how do we keep those flows going, maintaining safety, maintaining drinking water, maintaining recreation? So the Watershed Council is working with bi-state, multi-interest to keep the flows going, manage those flows in a more natural hydrograph instead of the peaks and the valleys. How do we keep it more consistent? And then on the people side of things, we have Truckee River Day every year. Has anyone who's participated in Truckee River Day? Fabulous. It's our volunteer restoration day. We do every October. We've been doing it for, I think 30 years now. Every year, anywhere from typically these days we're around 350 volunteers. When we started out, literally it was like a measurable percentage of the town of Truckee came out on Truckee River Day, get their hands in the dirt, their boots in the mud, planting willows, helping fish species, making real, measurable, concrete improvements in our watershed. So I know that there's some interest, particularly here within the town of Truckee. So I want to highlight two projects. One, the Donner Creek Restoration Project. We started the first phase last year and will be continuing construction this year. As you can see, those different color lines, those are that's where Donner Creek used to be historically. So back in 1939, 1965, and nowadays. And so you can see, hopefully, those colors are showing up for you. It used to meander all the way across basically what's I-80, where the outlets and the high school were, used to meander across that whole area and move from season to season. Well, as people came in, we put in I-80, we squished it. And we channelized it into what I call the bowling alley, that very, very straight area. So that means that the water is picking up speed, it's picking up energy, it's grabbing as much of the banks as it can, and it's carrying that downstream. So that means that Donner Creek, instead of sitting on the surface of a meadow and moving from one place to the other or a floodplain, it's getting deeper and deeper and deeper. It's rock bottom. It's at rock bottom. So how do we reintroduce some biodiversity into that? How do we improve water quality? So we're doing things like putting root wads on alternating banks, creating a little bit more of a meander, creating areas where the sediment can drop out. Bugs can they can procreate in that area. And then the bugs feed the fish and feed the birds and feed the wildlife that we love. And that starts trickling up into a healthier watershed. So these are 4 different sites. Site 1 is right by the mobile home park. We did that project last year. You can see that really terrible erosion on that bank. I was honestly it felt like some of those mobile homes were like hanging off the bank. Site 2, right above the mouse hole, you can again see that's the orange fencing is where the town put in the bike path several years ago. Since then, we've lost trees because there's such active erosion on there. Site 3 is right near TTUSD, across the highway, and it's actually hydrologically connected to Donner Creek, but now there's not active flows going through there. So basically when there's stormwater coming off of Donner Pass Road, coming down from Tahoe Donner, it feeds this wetland in there, and then it goes under the highway through culverts into Donner Creek. We clean that up. We allow meadows and wetlands to naturally filter the pollutants out of there. That means that what goes into Donner Creek is cleaner. What goes into the Truckee River is cleaner. And then Site 4 is that bowling alley and the meander that we're doing. One other project I want to highlight is the Donner Lake Interagency Partnership for Stewardship. I know it's a terrible mouthful. DIPS is what we call it, and that's a dipper, is a bird that is native to this species. native to this area. It is a partnership of 9 different organizations. No one entity has responsibility for Donner Lake. Everybody has different interests. Is it recreation? Is it wildlife? Is it water supply? How do we all come together and have a common language and common goals about this? So the Watershed Council has been working with all of these partners, anywhere from, the state of California to Tahoe Donner, local Rec and Park, and a shout out to the town of Truckee has also been a tremendous partner in this. So we bring it all together, figure out what are our common goals and what's an action plan. Filter that through all of us get to kibitz about it and what rises to the top. And then we have an action plan that we can actually be moving forward to. All of those implementation activities leads to a healthier, stronger Donner Lake. So an example of this, actually the Donner Lake Bank restorations. This is an ongoing project. You probably aren't seeing anything now, but moving forward, keep your eyes open for this. This is based actually on a pilot program that we did over in Donner Memorial State Park over by the lagoon. That we were losing literally feet of shoreline between 2019 and 22. We lost about 2 feet of shoreline. When you go to the lagoon, you see all those terrible exposed roots and trees falling in. That was because we had recreation. Everybody was on there. Everyone's like, I want to go into the water. And they're all climbing in over the banks and trampling the vegetation. We're losing that vegetation that holds all of the soil in place. And so that erosion meant we were losing shoreline. So we used the Donner Memorial State Park and the lagoon over there as a pilot project. It's different. I'll be the first to admit what's on the South Shore is different than what's on the North Shore, but there's lessons learned. So now working with Rec and Park and the town of Truckee, we are here at the Watershed Council, we're working to identify out of those 39 public piers, which we all love so much, which my daughter, when she was in high school, was on those public piers pretty much every day. In her senior year, when the sun was out, she was there. Right? We all know the kids are there. We all know when people come to visit, they're there. My family goes there once a week for dinner, in the summertime. We love these areas. So we did an assessment to figure out which are the most heavily impacted of those public piers. How do we bring back not only public safety, because some of those banks are very steep and loose, so public safety, improved recreation, but also how are we improving habitat? Can we actually plant something there to make it a living shoreline instead of what we've become accustomed to, those bare banks? So we're in the process of doing that. We've identified we're working on identifying the top 3 to 5 of those 39 piers. How do we stabilize that? How do we bring back habitat? And then we'll be moving forward. We're in the process of designing these projects, implementing them over the next several years. And the idea is, how do we identify the best practices, hand off a toolkit to Rec and Park that they can start implementing this on an ongoing basis. So instead of, coming in and doing a big flashy project all the time, it becomes part of our second nature, taking care of the areas that we love along Donner Lake. So if you want to learn more about the Watershed Council, we do have what we call river talks. They're very informal, typically about 30, 35 minutes, something like that. We can do them in person. We can come to you, or you can come to us, or we have them remote. We have one coming up on May 27th, so that's next week. You can subscribe to our newsletter. I have in there sign up in back, but I forgot to bring the sign up. It's sitting on my desk. Sorry about that. Definitely explore our website, and we're on Facebook and Instagram. And that's it. If anyone has any questions, I'd love to answer them for you. Yeah.
Whatever through Morris Valley all the time.
Yeah.
And I just want to say the impact of what you did drove me crazy when you were doing it.
Right.
But, you know, now that it's kind of settled and you can see the development, it's really remarkable. And, you know, I really encourage people to go and see what it is and what you remember 10 years ago. It went from nothing to just a beautiful place now, so thank you.
Great, thank you. And it is really interesting. I mean, I always tell people, like, yeah, it's ugly, it's surgical when it happens, right? And we have big yellow trucks, Tonka trucks, in the middle of what people consider pristine environment. But you can see how wet those meadows are now. They used to be dry. They used to be on a declining trend, getting drier and drier, turning more into a desert instead of a wet meadow. So I'm really excited about that project. I love it.
Yeah, thank you. That was great. Besides Truckee River Day, are there any other events that volunteers can come out and support?
Yeah, so we do also have an Adopt a Stream water quality monitoring. So 4 times a year, volunteers, there are several volunteers here in the room, volunteers go out 4 times a year to the same creeks. And we've been doing this for 20 some odd years. So we can see a trend. You know, how is the oxygen doing? How is, the pH doing? Those give us both red flags. Is there a problem upstream that we need to be taking care of? Or is it steady? Or is it improving? All of that information is super important for us to be tracking. So we've been doing that for years. It's about 24 creeks that we've been monitoring over the years. And if anyone wants to get involved, we typically have one training at the beginning in May every year. But even if you want to step in the middle of the year, then we can pair you with some of our more experienced volunteers. We have some of our volunteers, like, it is their creek that they monitor. Like, really, it's their creek. Is it a few people in here? And they've been monitoring that same creek for years and years and years. They plan their vacations around when we do our monitoring. Yeah.
All right, thank you, Michele. We appreciate it. Okay, up next we have Colin West, who is the founder and CEO of Clean Up the Lake. And I believe we have a slide deck switch out.
Welcome.
So here's the presentation, and the video is the next screen. Yeah, so when you come to present, then you just hit escape. Yeah. And I'll sit right here too. Okay. And then we can click on the video, and then you can go back to can present that too. Perfect. Yeah, right there. Perfect.
Yeah. Right. Thank you everyone for having me here today. Colin West from Clean Up the Lake. Excited to discuss our nonprofit and everything we've been up to lately in the area. Let's see, is it possible to do a presentation format? Or that is, okay. Interesting, okay. Yeah, I don't know, it's fine, I think it's PC to Max. Anyways, our team, we've got a team of about like 5 of us, a few extra contractors, but myself, we have an operations coordinator, Clement Robnick, helping run all the field work that we do, a programs coordinator who supports me in a lot of the administrative tasks, environmental scientist Ellie Everest, who has been out working with Siddhi Chandra in the last few years and studying underneath him from UNR, and recently we've been working with a SkillBridge intern, which is in fact a DoD partnership with the Department of Defense, where we're actually taking and working with veteran or active service members on their way out of the military. And what we did with him, this was our first candidate, and it was part of our Global Alliance program, where at Clean Up the Lake, we'd love to have a global impact, but I really don't want to get out there and manage chapters around the world. The liability of what we do is quite high. So we set up a training program where we have individuals coming in and working underneath us, learning every aspect of of running a conservation dive nonprofit and then taking that back to areas. So he's in fact looking at setting up a nonprofit in Washington State called Clean Up the Sounds. And so he wants to take what we do here with Clean Up the Lake to the Puget Sound, and I actually grew up there, so it was really fun to work with him as the first candidate. And I've done pilot research out literally in front of where I was born and raised, and found hundreds and hundreds of PVC pipe from shellfish farming and tire reefs and everything. So it's a fun first step to hopefully a larger impact outside of the Tahoe area. So our mission is to activate local communities into joining us to take action to protect our environments both above and below the surface. So our team is more known for the cleanup dives that we do, or the aquatic invasive species surveillance, but we also know well that we have to be working on the surface, working towards policy, education, and everything we can to prevent that litter and prevent the pollution getting into our lakes and our waterways. And that's why we do things like the Lake Tahoe Litter Summit, where we bring nonprofits, federal, state, local governments, and concerned citizens together to talk about what's going wrong, what's going well, and where are those gaps that we need to work towards to prevent litter from making its way into our environment and ultimately into Lake Tahoe or Donner Lake, of which we actually held a similar seminar, which was a smaller scale event than the summit that we do for Tahoe for Donner, which was about a month or two ago. I'll actually be sharing some of those findings today with everyone. So what we do, we of course do a lot of different scuba litter cleanups, and we've removed over 82,000 pounds now in about 4.5 years of submerged litter from our waterways. And we've been out, a lot of that's from Tahoe, close to half of that. But surprisingly, over 14,000 pounds of that is from Donner. And I'll get more into a current project that we're doing that's going slower than we hoped, because there's a lot of litter down there still. So it's sad to see, but thankfully we're there chipping away at it. At this point in time, we've actually hit over 18 different lakes and one saltwater section of Washington State. And 85% of our work, though, outside of that large number of lakes that we've been active is in Lake Tahoe and Donner. So we're always here at home working away. But I think Donner Lake in the Truckee area is a perfect example as to why we don't just work in Tahoe. I think some people get concerned, oh, well, you guys are kind of everywhere now. But there's so many communities that need our support as well. And so we do some events, we do some cleanup events in Mono County or Mammoth Lakes and some other areas as well. And Donner is extremely special to us because it's a bit of our stomping grounds, where we kind of test out new projects and theories and benefit the health of Donner Lake. So we also do a lot of shoreline community cleanups. We create more data-driven waste reduction strategies and work with environmental scientists to really kind of drill into the issues that cause this pollution. Work on environmental education and advocacy, and more recently have gotten into storytelling and professional media with an environmental focus. So before starting to Clean Up the Lake, I was actually running a film and television company for about 10 years. Loved bringing it in, but the first 5 years of launching a nonprofit it's a bit tedious, it's a bit of work. So I've really feel Clean Up the Lake's been a lot more sustainable, and have brought that back into the front line a little bit more. So we actually have a feature documentary called 72 Miles that we've just sent off to international film festivals. Tomorrow night I take off for Mammoth Lakes Film Festival, where a little series that we have, an episode from that was part of their official selection for the film festival. And I think the next slide will actually give you a little taste of that. But before we do, just a couple other stats of what we've done with our impact. We've already cleaned over 130 miles of subsurface shoreline of Sierra Lakes, and have began working with over 3,000 youth in our area, which is a big thanks to Missy and her crew recently on a project that we've been doing in North Lake Tahoe and Placer County. So thank you. Let's see, so I will go now to give you guys a little taste of what we do, as sometimes I'm a big believer that picture's worth 1,000 words and video's worth even more. So oops, is there volume? Yeah. Be good? is why I started what I did here with Clean Up the Lake, and I want to keep it going and pick up the pace and experiences like this more than ever.
We're really pushing our boundaries. We're bringing out our best volunteers. We're taking our time to go through our dive plans.
That this town is known for ice fishing, which is not really a recreational activity that happens up in Tahoe.
I mean, we're less than 300 feet away from the absolute maximum for recreational diver, if not, the recommended maximum for anyone. Finding out about this blue-green algae 4 days before we arrived was a concern. There are years upon years worth of bait jars, beer cans, food bags, anchors, umbrellas, chairs, and everything that you could imagine sitting underneath the surface of Lake Mary and other lakes across Mammoth.
What I find really amusing, especially for the younger generation, is that a lot of these things are like a time capsule for them.
Now we actually have to call them unknown items, because I myself and most everyone that comes out with us as volunteers are not trained or licensed archaeologists.
We actually study trash, so in that sense there is no trash.
Right. So that's just kind of a quick snippet or a trailer of a documentary series that we have that is chronicling the work that our organization does. So each episode has a different location, it has a different topic when it comes to conservation diving, visuals, everything. And we actually created this series as a short format docu-series so that the communities where we work can follow along with the work that we're doing. We want to keep that readily available, and so that's actually available at youtube.com/@makeadifferencecreative. And so there's, I think, about 8 episodes that we've already done, and we're trying to do about 1 every single month. It's kind of an exciting look into Clean Up the Lakes projects and everything that we do at the organization. What do I do? There we go. Sorry.
Now
Now it looks better, so that's great. One problem fixes another. So again, I was saying for Donner Lake, for us, it's really a place of innovation. At this point, we started our first ever cleanup on Donner Lake back in 2020. So I remember vividly having about 3 tires around my arms, stepping up about 40 feet down on the banks of underneath water, trying to climb up the wall of Donner Lake to get to the surface, and that's where we created a rock rope. Then we had surface support carrying a raft, because then we had too many tires once we figured out how to get them up. And we had a lot of kayakers fall in the water. So, every little problem that happened was a lesson learned and a new innovative tactic and strategy that we used. So, we realized we needed, stronger buddy systems, certain new custom hand signals that we developed there. The duct tape rock rope I just mentioned, Darlene, that trash raft. We actually really started creating and working with our freshwater adapted version of the United Nations Marine Categorization System for organizing the litter that we pull out. We've also recently did more of a deep dive protocol after doing some surveys in 2020, and developed kind of the use of diver propulsion vehicles, nitrox gas to stay down there longer and cover more ground. Here's some photos of just some of the early work that we did at Donner. Every day would typically look like this, which was pretty sad. So when you think about 14,000 pounds, it's no joke. Could probably fill up semis with what we pulled out at Donner Lake. So just kind of divers at work, if you will, using mesh bags for some of the smaller litter and the cans that we pull out, and the rock rope would pull up things like the cinder blocks, tires, etc. So this is kind of dumping out probably what looks like 2 dives worth of litter. And then we began sorting with that categorization system that we developed from working on Donner. So over the years at Donner Lake, we got to work with TDRPD and a couple of young ladies, 10 and 12 years old, the Hoyer girls, and went and developed actually some of these signs, which were right here, where Ella drew a little flower and really had a dream of asking people to clean up their trash on the public piers. And so we supported her in that dream and got these signs printed, made, and approved by the TDRPD to be up at every single public pier. Shortly after that, in 2022, we worked with the town and Building 180, an art agency, to develop these litter art sculptures that are now over at Donner Lake Boat Launch. And so this is made from all the litter that we pulled out from underneath it to drive further awareness of the issue and hopefully get fishermen and other recreators cleaning up after themselves when they're out there. This is a look at kind of the new tactic that we're doing to clean up. So these scooters that we use, or diver propulsion vehicles, allow us to go a lot faster and cover more ground when there's not litter and things to be seen or cleaned. So we're moving quicker underwater, and then we're breathing nitrox gas. So it's enriched enriched air, so there's actually more oxygen and less nitrogen in the air, so we can stay at deeper depths for a longer period of time. But at those deeper depths, we're consuming more. So recently on the project, we realized we need to strap another tank to our front, and then we can stay down there a little bit longer. So, it's a bit tedious. You've also got lift bags and diver surface marker buoys for GPS locating heavy lift or possibly historical items. So there's a lot going on underwater, which is also why sometimes we get brand new fresh divers that want to come out, and I'm like, yeah, we gotta get you training a little bit more. But thankfully we have an environmental dive center to do just that in Incline Village. So on that current project where you just saw a photo of me on it, we've already gone roughly, it's actually closer to 3 miles now, and collected over 2,000 pounds of litter from the depths of 35 to 55 feet. We're covering more ground, staying down there longer, but also at depth, there's more challenges to get litter and things like that up. You saw one of those challenges where we're actually using the DPV, and sometimes when we're on that DPV, it'll hit our octo, and at that point, I think it dumped air out of my octo, and I ran out of air, and I had to share air, and that was that situation you saw on that trailer. So, we put safety first though, and so quickly can grab some buddy breathing air and head up safely. So. Lots always going on in Donner Lake, and we learn a lot and continue to take that to Tahoe and other areas. So I want to go into a little bit of the data analysis that we've done for Donner to give you a picture of really what is underneath the surface there. So since 2020, we pulled out, the numbers always keep going up, so it's over 14,000 pounds now of litter from beneath the surface of Donner. So in 2020, I think we pulled out a total of about 5,100 pounds or over 1,200 items. 2022, we kind of really refined those systems. I think our total weight was a 7,800 pound wet weight, so we do a wet weight and a dry weight. And I got to give our divers credit. The wet weight, they're actually lifting that out. But once it dries and then there's evaporation, like when it came to close to 8,000 pounds, it was almost 1,000 pounds of water that evaporates from the litter. So about 6,800 in 2022. And then we've been going. We're not finished yet, so we're at about 2,000 pounds or over 1,900 items right now. So using this system, you can kind of see a different breakdown of the count and the weight of the litter that's been coming out of Donner. We're mainly looking at a kind of mix of 2020 and 2022 data on this, but over 2,700 pieces of plastic that comes in weighing about 300 pounds. And when you look at rubber, we've got close to 2,000 pounds. So a lot of people think, it's rubber, but most tires, and that's predominantly tires that we pulled, hundreds and hundreds of tires. And most tires are in fact made from a synthetic rubber or polymer, so plastic based. So when you're looking at that, it's over 2,300 pounds of future microplastics that have been pulled out of Donner Lake alone, let alone all the other litter, which you might notice close to 3,000 metal items, which if you can guess what type of metal that is, it's often the beer cans. Some soda, but usually beer wins that count. So the most complete data set that we have is from 2022. Again, 2020, we didn't even collect data until we were about halfway through and realized, hey, that'd be a good idea. So that's where, 2022, we came back and had a full data set there as well as this year's project. So you can see, plastic compared to like foam plastic, there wasn't as much foam, which is good. So hopefully that's a testament to the food container program town of Truckee has. And then when you're looking over at glass and ceramic, that was one I didn't really call out on the last slide, but quite a few beer bottles that we were pulling out, soda bottles, things like that, that have polluted not only Donner but other areas as well. So weighing over 3,400 pounds. That's usually from probably, either when some of us weren't alive in this room or, about 40-ish years ago when some of us were kids. Metal, rubber, some, wood. Sometimes we pull out like treated wood, but obviously leave natural things there too. So we got, these are some of the counts. So yeah, 3,400. This includes 2020. So just some of these numbers went up a little bit, which predominantly, metal was a big one, and rubber as well. I kind of go forward. So did discuss that, of course, one of the problem metal litter items that we were pulling out was, of course, beer cans, with roughly 2,000 plus just in that 1 year in 2022. Oops. And when it comes to the plastic litter that we were pulling out, a lot of it was food packaging. So we would find closer to the Tahoe Donner HOA area, a lot of the winds coming over from the west, blowing things to the east side of Donner Lake. I mean, the amount of chip bags and just kind of tiny food bags and things. I remember being able to drop down to my knees at about 25 feet and just without moving, be able to pick up about 20 to 25 pieces of litter underneath water. Not as hard to do a little cleanup down there as you'd imagine. And when it came, and as I mentioned earlier too, with the glass or ceramics, it really was beer bottles is one of the biggest items that, thankfully, I think we're picking up from those mistakes of our past, if you will. So, with the data and the system that we developed, we've actually built different transects. So every dive that the divers do, we get GPS at the beginning, GPS at the end, and we categorize all the litter from those little blocks that you see on this frame into a system with over 83 different litter types, everything you could really imagine. So we have a high granularity of the data to understand what's going on in each of those areas. So, when you look at dive 9.1, it's actually over here on the far east side that I was talking about, where it kind of gets shallower and everything washes up there. And we had, one of the most significant amounts of trash. So we can better target our efforts in the future for hot spots. And we can also see, what the litter is in those areas to better, think about how we can prevent it. And, when we look at the past data we had tons of beer cans. We had a lot of tires, we had a lot of plastic, so we could think about better recycling, better infrastructure around the lake, which are all things that we talked to many of the community members of town, TDRPD, at our litter seminar about a month ago. So some pilot programs that we're hoping to get into to, really ensure that the future doesn't need this type of effort, and, our kids can find a much cleaner lake and lakes in their area. So thank you so much, and appreciate you guys' attention.
We're gonna hold questions for the speakers now because we're running into each thing. So hopefully, Colin, will you stay around?
Yeah.
Here at the end. All right. Next up, we have Mary Ellen Benier, who is the co-founder and programs manager of Headwaters Science Institute. My daughter has gone to camp, I think, the last 4 years.
Yay. Good deal. Well, I'm verging now into the education part of water and what we're about. So our mission is to foster curiosity through science. And we, the three of us founded the Headwaters, and we at the time were working up in Norton Meadow with another environmental ed group, and we realized that the science piece was missed. Oh.
Speaking of the mic.
Oh, got it. And since we were based up in Northern Meadow, we were very understanding of how important the Northern Meadow was for the headwaters of the South Yuba River, and so we took that on to our name. And we realized that the best way to learn science was through doing science and experiencing nature and to make the connection to the natural world. And one of our more important things was to make science fun. So we came up with this student-driven research protocol, and it's basically student-centered. We take them through a question-asking process where they have to ask their own questions, and each student asks 4 to 5 questions, and then in a group they decide which one is interesting and which one do they think they can answer. Can they come up with a hypothesis for it? And then we pair them up with staff or a graduate student from UNR or UC Davis or whatever area we're close to, and so that they get to work with a working scientist and see and ask questions from them and what their life is about. They experience challenges and setbacks, but part of the takeaway is that they get to figure that out and problem solve. And we found that experiencing science is much more impactful than actually doing it or memorizing it in school. So these are our goals. They ask questions, they develop a hypothesis out of the question, they come up with how are they going to collect their data, what tools do they need, and most of the tools are pretty basic and rudimentary. You can usually have something around the house that can do that. They take the data that they've collected and put it together into a chart and a graph, and they get to present it to their peers. So we try to engage each student at their grade level. We've done K through 12. It can be as simple as, do ants like sugar more than salt? Or it can be as complicated as looking at the snowpack and where are the different densities of the snow and what does that mean to snowfall water release. We teach skills and content, so they get to figure out how to get data as well as background information on. The teacher will give us a subject of what they want covered, and so we'll give them some background information before they jump into their question asking protocol. They work in groups from like 3 to 4 so that everybody gets to do everything, and they get to actually experience what science is about. So we have at-school programs that run about 4 class periods, as well as a half day or a full day out in the field. And they run through the same protocol, asking questions, coming up with a hypothesis, getting data, and they also get to experience part of the day outside. The other option is that we can do an overnight program. We started basing it out of Clairetopan Lodge, but now if a school in Santa Cruz wants to do it, we find an area there that they can go and spend the night. And they go through the same protocol. They work with mentors, and the bigger difference with this is that they get a team building experience. They get to have a campfire with a talent show, and we do a night hike, so it's more of an experiential thing for the school. So this is just exactly what I've told you about. This is what our schedule is. And we did some survey metrics and found out some interesting numbers. We figured out that 87% of the students agreed they learned something they might not have learned in school. They report that they are more familiar with scientific research, and more importantly, 64% of them felt confident in their ability to understand and apply the scientific method, which in the bigger picture, even if they don't go into the sciences, they now understand what science is about, what is good science and what is bad science. And in these days, that tends to be an important skill. Here's some more metrics. The bigger number that I really enjoy is that in the middle, the 85% of them have enjoyed science more after participating in the program. The other numbers are 3/4 of them gained confidence in science, 3/4 of them gained confidence in problem solving and learning new skills in problem solving, and the same amount feel like they're confident in understanding what science is about. So here's a quote from one of the kids. And so tying it back into water, why do we focus on water? Well, it impacts everything from our snowpack to our faucets. I mean, we're all very clear on that. It supports ecosystems and recreation, and both on the west side and the east side of our crest. We felt very connected to the headwaters of the South Yuba, having based in Soda Springs. But it also, the Truckee River is a very important, as you all know, for this area and for the Reno area. For me, I've seen the aha moment for a lot of the kids that come up, and they actually see the Norden Meadow and the surrounding mountains packed full with water and snow, and understanding that the crest is our huge basin and reservoir of water for the state, and it becomes more impactful when they actually can see it and study it. We do several programs during the winter. It's my personal interest, because I spent 20 years working in the ski area with snow science, and the program director, she's married to the snow science lab director up in Soda Springs. So we love the programs that come in for this for the winter. There's so much that they can learn about snow. There's different densities, different layers in the snow, how the snow changes, and the biggest impact they get out of it is that how that affects everything else in the state, and that they actually get to see the large amount of snow that we get and its rate of snow melt. The other tie-in is that I can't think of a program we've done either here in the area or outside of the area that hasn't entailed water of some sort. We take programs to schools, and around every school there's a pond, there's a creek, there's a park you can walk to, and so I would say 99% of our programs, they're looking at water. And so there's so much that you can look at. They often compare water quality in one area to another near a busy area, as opposed to a park where there isn't as much effect. And they can study pH and turbidity. This guy's looking through a turbidity tube. They can look at temperature, dissolved oxygen, and seems to be the most fun part of it is they can also sample macroinvertebrates, and they can study the water quality and what effect it has on the number of macroinvertebrates they find and the type. So we hope that hands-on science leaves a lasting impression, and we hope that the students walk away knowing where their water comes from, whether it's here or where they live, and how they can understand water quality as opposed to what they see around the area, and more importantly, to understand how the snowpack affects the greater California and Nevada. And I think that is it. So we'll nice and brief.
All right, thank you, Mary. Appreciate it. Next up, we have Missy Mohler, who is the Executive Director of SWEP. Missy, welcome.
Thank you. Okay.
Okay, the arrow's right here?
Yeah. Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Missy, and I'm with, whoops, I'll get to the microphone. I'm with Sierra Watershed Education Partnerships, or SWEP, and a lot of people from out of the area confuse us with Truckee River Watershed Council, which I'm happy to be confused because then I can explain a little bit more. But yes, we both deal with the watershed in our names, and we both do amazing things. And I'm super excited to be here with these partners and talk to all of you about the amazing things happening in this region. It's so good to see familiar faces and know our common goal. So we work to promote stewardship through education, service, learning, and action. Whoops, how do I go back? Somewhere there it's supposed to say action fosters hope. I'm not sure why it's not saying it. But that's my motto. And we all need a little hope, especially right now. I know everybody in here is a lover of the environment, of cleaner water. And kids have an exaggerated need of that. They're talking or hearing their parents worry about forest fires or the problems of what's not being done in the environment. And so at SWEP, we're trying to create service learning projects and action projects that can promote hope, that can foster hope. If they feel they can contribute, they're empowered to feel that there's a possibility of it getting better. So our mission is to promote environmental stewardship by connecting students directly to the local community and environment through watershed education and service learning projects. SWEP's programming is primarily to Tahoe Truckee students. We don't go out of the area. Our vision is that by connecting students to the environment, by giving them action projects that foster hope, they will come back to give to the environment. That's what we all need for the environment up here, is people that give back. In the same way all of you with the library are working so hard and advocating this. If a kid has an experience that is moving, they're going to come back as a future donor, as a volunteer, in some way advocating for the environment. So our name has partnerships in it. We couldn't do what we do without our partnerships, and that's a unique aspect of how we do our education. And I'm going to highlight a few partners that are right here in the audience. And so we help the partners reach the students and the deliverable that they're working on. We also help the students have a real world experience with what they're learning through these partners, as well as career pathways. They go, wow, that's what a hydrologist does. That's what a geologist does. That's what endangered species is. You know, I had an experience years ago where we had a field program and we were out working on trees, and I was with middle schoolers, which any of you have worked with students, it's the most challenging group. But they had to get the diameter of a tree, and they were in small groups and they were struggling a little bit with it. And one kid stopped and went, oh my God, I get it now. I understand what diameter means. Like, I've seen it on paper. I have the formula memorized. But now I know what diameter means. So that for the teacher is like, right? That kid is going to remember from then on what diameter is. Hopefully they also learned about sugar pine tree. Oh, it's moving slow. Okay. Oh, struggling a little bit with this. Okay. So within our partnerships, we have these goals, but it's always around service learning and towards climate action projects. One of our partnerships is restoration with the Truckee River Watershed Council. I'm proud that we've been able to expose children to the wonderful cultural, historical background, the progress that you saw that Michele described. We're able to bring that to the students. And what's wonderful is then the students are able to say, hey, Mom, Dad, do you know that that used to be a dairy? That there used to be animals grazing there? And that I helped restore it? That they learn the term restore or restoration. That they see and can be a part of progress. We all know what service can do for us. I know Bruce was asking about it earlier too. There's so many wonderful things. Truckee Community Day, Truckee River Day, and I'm excited that we're hopefully going to be implementing some defensible space in Truckee River Day in the future. But I always tell the students, get out there, do some work. There was one day at Truckee River Day that it was pelting, sneighing sideways while we were working. I was soaked. I felt hypothermic afterwards, but I honestly felt like I did a little bit to save the world. Not just the Tahoe Truckee region that day, but I felt so good about the progress we made. So I want to show you some photos here of some of the restoration work we've done with our partner at Truckee River Watershed Council. So the student carrying the willows, willow wattling. Is that a word? Wattling? Wattles? Okay, I like it. So it's where you take a piece of a willow and it's been cut just right, and you can plant it into the watershed and it grows and helps the watershed. And the students learn about that. They were doing that out at Dry Creek, which is amazing, the restoration out by Russell Valley. The students with the trash bags, that's where they learned at MacGyver Dairy about the historical history and the cultural significance of that area. They found vintage glass and they cleaned up and they felt such progress at what they had helped contribute towards. Then there's Trout Creek. One of the engineers there in the middle of that photo, former Envirolution student. Let me just tell you, as a teacher, when you see a student come back and work for our community and region, that's where you go, okay, it did work. I connected them and they came back and they're continuing to give, and that's all we want. The middle picture at the bottom are students at the high school learning that the freeway behind the high school used to be the meandering creek that Michele was talking about. So I love that people can learn about this through the restoration process, but if I can connect elementary kids, middle school kids, high school kids to the progress being made to show them hope of what they can be a part of in the future or even today in a project, then I've done my job. And that lower picture is Michele and myself way back at Bear Creek, I think that was, at Alpine Meadows, talking about how we were going to get kids connected. We also partner with Truckee River Watershed Council with Truckee River Day. And that middle picture that just came down at the end of the fish is what I love the most. I tell a story to the kids about how the blackbird was endangered. Can you believe it? The blackbird that we see all over the place right now, right? And at one point it was endangered and a guy worked really hard to help it come back, and people, just like that story about the starfish on the beach where somebody's throwing the starfish back in the water and someone goes, "You're not going to make a difference." And they go, "I made a difference for that starfish. I made a difference for that one," right? I want to give hope to students. I want them to believe that as big as climate change is, as big as some of these threats are, we can do something every day. And so they learn about the Lahontan cutthroat trout, how it's an endangered species, and how we're working to have a comeback, and what we can do to clean the watershed and to help it have food and to have the ability to survive. And then we also do a little art. Anybody that knows me knows that I have a love for art in advocacy, especially around the environment. Okay. So one of our other partners, as Colin just said, is Clean Up the Lake. I love what they're doing. I love to expose the children to what they're doing. I love to show the problem and the solutions. I love to show the effort and the heart behind it. And then I love to show the students the science. I love to have them come to our events. So we'll have a field day or a science fair, and we have exposure to so many kids, which helps clean up the lake, right? It helps the kids to hear what Clean Up the Lake is doing. But if we are talking to the kids about the problem and showing them a bit about what's being done, but then we say, "Here's the trash, sort it like Cuddle does." And then we say, "Go on out around the school and we're gonna pick up trash and we're gonna sort it and we're gonna learn from this and we're gonna progress from this point on." It seems to be getting stuck. Oh boy. Well, I skipped a little bit, but I think. So, another project that we've been doing recently that I'm super excited about is Defensible Space Stewardship Days, I call them, but also we're doing for older kids an exposure to career pathways. So, as Michele said earlier, the health of the forest affects the watershed, and the watershed affects the health of the forest. And there's so much we need to do around cleaning up the forest. And kids are very scared about the threat of forest fires. They hear us talking about insurance problems and such. And so we are working with the Truckee Fire District in giving the kids an action project and fostering hope. And as you'll see here, we worked with 157 students out at Donner. We cleaned up 40-yard dumpsters, 4 cubic yards in 2 hours of an elderly couple in need at the summit. And the students then felt, okay, this is a scary subject, but I'm making this house safer, and therefore my community safer, my school safer, and I'm contributing to the problem. and helping make it better. We've also worked at the middle schools. So we have the fire district to come to the school the day before. We teach them about the problem. We talk about the scariness of it. We talk about some of the solutions. And they are so serious when they're working with the fire department. Let me tell you, afterwards they're like, do I have to get boots like you for tomorrow? So we do a lesson the day before, and then we do a service day the next day. And the fire district says it's the best day of their year. And I gotta agree, I love it. And the enthusiasm and what these kids can do. We had to get protective glasses and helmets because they got quite active. So I just wanna show you this video because it represents a bit of what I'm talking about with the Action Project, whether it's with the watershed and restoration, or with Cuddle, or on defensible space, or picking up plastic, or advocating for banning plastic water bottles. It's all about service, it's all about action, and it's all about fostering hope. Okay. Every computer's different.
All different.
Oh.
This is cooperation with SWEPT and Truckee Fire District for defensible space around a home in Cisco Grove. Took a bunch of gigantic logs, and it was really fun because we had to find them, then we had to carry them all the way over here. I love that. Hi, my name is Zoe. I really like doing this because it's helping others and helping them not get a fire in their house. It feels like, makes me feel safe around areas that don't have that much fire protection. If we do this more often, it'll definitely make our forests safer.
Okay, hopefully I can get out of this. Do it again. Okay, so a big part of our programming, we have a lot of winter programs around snow survival, around snow science, but a lot of water programs too. The Tall Basin Watershed Education Summit is with high schoolers, and they work with collecting data for the Forest Service on fish recovery in certain areas, really important data. Wonders of Watershed, they learn lessons indoors one day and then they go out and do service projects. Native plants, weed warriors, just general cleanup. Boy, kids love to do cleanup. I can get you a whole crew. And then Sage Hen, where we teach water quality. What are the good macroinvertebrates? What are the different signals, how you can adopt a stream, different things like that. I know as a kid that was very serious for me, but I love pulling out a macroinvertebrate, teaching them that these are species that deserve, kindness and respect, and what they represent, and how scary they are, but how you can hold them, observe them, learn from them, and then release them again. I think I'm just going to end there because I know we've kind of run over, but But I've also handed out these new activity booklets that I have that kind of describe action, fostering hope, and give the kids some how-tos. Also some area for creativity. I had to put in a few drawings of native species that I did there. So pass that on to fellow kids or grandchildren or children that you have, or just learn something about SWEP. I also have it online, which I'm super excited about if you don't want to deal with the paper aspect of it. But I'm excited for what we do, the partners that we have, and for what we're all doing for water quality in the region.
Thank you, Missy.
And last, we have our nonprofit speaker, who is Debbie Collette, and she's the operations director at One at a Time. Debbie.
Thank you.
Just have now. Yeah. It's okay.
Yes. Oh, yeah, yeah.
Okay, perfect.
Well, thank you for having us today, and thank you so much for sharing about the amazing work you're doing here in our community and area. It's incredible. I have 4 kids who participate a lot in it, so it's great to see some of the stats and hear more about the organizations. My name is Debbie Collette, and I'm honored to be here with you today. I have 4 kids who attend school all in the Truckee School District, and I've been married for 21 years. We live over in Glenshire. This is my colleague Sean Kapoff, who happens to be in town, so I brought him along with me today. He's our executive director, and we work for an organization called One at a Time. What we do is we help families around the world gain access to clean drinking water, clean and safe drinking water in their home. And today we're here to tell you how we started, what we do, why it matters, and how you can get involved. So right now I want you to raise your hand if you've ever been really thirsty. Raise your hand. That's probably all of us, right? Now keep your hand up, and this is probably a lot of us are going to have our hand up for this one. If you've ever walked 2 miles for water on the trails, right? I hiked the Tahoe Rim with my son last year, and we were having to walk quite a bit to get water. Keep your hand up if when you walked those 2 miles for that water to get a sip of water, it was dirty, and you had no way to clean it, but you had to drink it anyways. You had to drink the dirty water. Probably not very many of us. Today, 1.7 billion people in our world do not have access to clean drinking water in their homes. That's basically 5 times the population of the United States. Or another way to look at it, if we line ourselves up shoulder to shoulder, that stat, we would wrap around the earth 40 times. 1.7 billion people don't have access to clean drinking water. Sean? That's you.
Oh, cool. I'm not from Truckee. This is actually my first time, and my goodness, this place is beautiful. And don't worry, I'm not going to move here. But I'll visit, and I'll make sure that when I walk the trails, I won't litter. All that good stuff. But I don't know if you've seen the TV series Ted Lasso. Have you seen that TV series, right? Football is life, which for the majority of the world, that's what we call soccer, but football is life. For us here in the room, we know that water is life. But it's not just water being life, it's clean water is life. That if you have dirty water, especially for a child 5 and under, it actually could kill them. In fact, it is the leading cause of death for children 5 and under around the world. And I didn't know or realize that stat until about 12 years ago when I met a little kid named Brian. And Brian was 3 years old at the time, and well, there you go. And that's me in the background with brown hair. So that's 12 years ago, and I met him and his family, and I asked his mom how his health was, and she said he's sick. And I said, sick from what? She's sick from our water. And I'm like, what does he have? He has worms. And I didn't know. I grew up in Orange County. I didn't know any of that stuff because we have clean water all the time. We have a great privilege there. I knew about water being contaminated, but it being in the ocean because I enjoy surfing, so I was aware of contaminated ocean water, but the water I drank was always purified. We always had a filter of some sort, or someone else was doing it that I didn't know about when I went to my faucet. But for this kid and all the kids in this community, they were visibly sick from the water that they drank, and it shook me. And so I realized I got to figure something out. And that's when I found this filter here, the Sawyer filter. Many of you guys may have used that filter, use it hiking. I found out that you can attach it to a bucket, you put dirty water in the bucket, you drop the hose down, dirty water goes through the hose, through the filter, and out comes clean drinking water. And I thought, well, that'll work. And so I'm like, well, I talked to a couple of guys in the country of El Salvador where I was, and I said, hey, I don't want to just hand this to the family because I think this could solve their problem. How do I do that in a way in which it's sustainable and gives them dignity? And he said, well, that's great, Sean. You don't touch it. You build relationships with the local leaders. You teach them on how to use it. You teach them on how to maintain it. And you let them be the ones to then distribute it so that it's sustainable. They own it, not you. You just keep relationships with the local leaders to make sure they continue to foster it and use it appropriately. And I was like, cool, done. And so we did that. Brian got his clean water. 50 families in that community got clean water, and I thought I was done. I thought I did my job. It's all run by local people, building relationships with them. We're friends, and that's good. And then the rest of the community said, hey, about a month later, can we get those filters? And I'm like, well, I don't know, I guess. Let me figure that out. I don't have any money. So I made a 501c3 in 2014, and we were able to raise the money to give the rest of that community clean water. And if you fast forward to today, I have no idea that this would ever happen. You fast forward today, we have given over 60,000 families access to clean drinking water in 10 countries, predominantly in Central America and Southeast Asia. And it has been a joy. In fact, I just got a text yesterday of one of the original filters. They're now 12 years old. But one of our scientists texted us just yesterday saying, Sean, look at this. This is a 12-year-old filter that they're still working in the same community. And for us, there's so many people that need access to clean drinking water, but we can all make a difference one at a time. And just like the, with the starfish, it's the same idea, the same concept. And so we've been able to create an organization that gives families access to clean drinking water that doesn't cost a lot of money. It's $100. Will give a family access to clean drinking water for the next 10 years. And it's pretty impactful for many of you guys who are hikers or out on the mountain. You know it. You've used the filter. You know how it works. You know it is effective. And the same thing when it comes to these rural communities where kids literally need this access to clean drinking water now. And so that's our goal, is to continue to do that on a daily basis. And Debbie.
Take over from here. Okay. 1 million gallons of water is what this filter will filter out. So that's roughly 10 years, but we do have it in some communities where it's been there longer. So I need one volunteer, or I'll just call on someone. Okay, one volunteer. Will you pick up this can right here? It's called a jerry can, and it's not completely full, but when it is completely full, it's 40 pounds. And young girls all over the world carry this can full before school, after school. Sometimes they can't even go to school. They're carrying it for miles in order to get water and bring it back to their homes. So girls all over the world, they drop out of school sometimes because they're just too busy collecting water to go to school. Globally, women and girls spend 200 million hours a day collecting water all around the world. And what's even worse is that water is contaminated. They collect the water, they bring it home, and then it has to be boiled. Yes, you are supposed to be holding it still. Yeah. So could you do that for 2 miles? Completely full, one in each hand. On your back, on your head. We're talking 9, 10, 11-year-old girls carrying that. And families spend, on average, 3 hours a day boiling the water that comes back into their home. So there's a lot of time spent. Okay, you can put that down now. Thank you. There's a lot of time spent, there's a lot of hours spent collecting the water and then cleaning the water. So this is why this filter, this is why clean water matters. It not only saves lives, but it gives people back their lives. It gives people back their time. Thank you. We're going to have you do one more thing here in a minute. Okay, Sean, this one's you.
Okay. I'm going to make this water dirty. I'm going to show you how the filter works.
Okay.
What is this, dirt?
That's local dirt.
Oh.
Pine needles.
Okay, we're just going to
It's nice and dirty.
That in there. This goes in here. Inside this filter, for those of you, for science purposes, it is a hollow fiber membrane. It's nothing new. I think it was invented maybe the 50s or 60s. It's a 0.1 microns absolute, not nominal, meaning that every single pore size is 0.1 microns, meaning that it'll take out, can't take out any TDS, total dissolved solids, so that being salt, chemicals, all that stuff. But it does take out bacteria. That's what everyone gets sick from. When you go travel overseas and all of a sudden your stomach starts feeling funny, that's probably bacteria, and that's probably because you decided to brush your teeth in that sink water, or you drank that margarita, then that ice, or whatever it was, It happens quick. It's usually E. coli, and it just does a lot of damage. This takes out all that bacteria, and it'll stop all the dirt. So you have actual visible dirty water. We've seen in areas where they don't have access to a lot of water, but they got a mud puddle. They can use that mud puddle and then use the filter. It'll stop all the dirt, and out will come clean drinking water. You just got to maintain it, and that's by back flushing it, which I'll show you in a second. What am I doing now?
Just
this part?
Yeah.
Okay. So you can kind of see how dirty it is, and then you can see just real quickly. Now, to us, this doesn't look like it's coming out quickly, but to those in rural communities where they have to go find wood sticks or whatever to boil their water in a little pot, they look at this and they think it's magic. I think it's magic because I am not a scientist. I just know fancy words to keep you guys entertained enough. But if you ask me a couple more questions, I'll be like, let me ask my scientist. I don't really know how this works. But it's incredible for them, and they look at it, and you can see visibly in the moms' faces, especially the moms with children that are really small. You look at their eyes, and it's filled with hope and joy, knowing that their kids are going to have access to clean drinking water. Because every single day, they have to make a decision on, is this water going to harm my children, or are my children going to die? Because there's no other option. They have to drink the contaminated water. And this is the solution. And it's so simple. It's so easy. And we could easily solve this crisis for kids 500 around the world. We just need more people engaged, more people involved, and more people understanding about how something that costs $100 could give a family access to clean drinking water. Desperately needs it right now. And so that's the impact here with the filter. That's how it works. Real quickly, just for the sake of showing you maintenance, this is the tough part. This is where we come alongside with local leaders. They're going to take a syringe. So this gets filled with all this dirt, right? Live straw can't do this because it's single use. You can't back flush it. A lot of these other filters you can back flush, but it actually blows out the membranes what's inside. The Sawyer filter is the only filter that we have tested with our scientists that the membrane is not deteriorated by putting pressure back into it, which is pretty incredible. So what you do is you just take a syringe of clean water, pull it up here, put it in here, and then every time they use it, we ask them to just put pressure in here, and that's it. Water keeps flowing. And it'll keep flowing for, I guess, 12 years for some of these filters. But it's pretty incredible. It's very simple. When you're introducing something like this to someone, it's hard for people to understand it. So that's why we have people coming in and following up. The local leaders don't just distribute once. We follow up over and over and over again to ensure that they're maintaining their filters and using it and they have the appropriate support so that those kids can continue to have access to clean and safe drinking water. Okay?
Awesome. Thank you. Are we wrapped? Okay, that's perfect. We have a lot of different ways that people can get involved and partner with us. We'll be at the back. We're happy to talk with you more. We'd love to share, everything that we're doing. Thank you.
Give a big round of applause. Not just to the speakers, but to the causes that they are all supporting. So thank you, everybody, for what you're doing. Okay, we are going to do really quickly. Does anybody have any stump speeches? Yes.
Hi, Kaylee with Truckee Community Foundation. Just wanted to let everyone know we're having with the final salon in our salon series stewarding our collective home on Thursday over at the Truckee Donner Rec Center. It starts at 5:30 and we're going to be doing some programming, including from Missy speaking from 5:30 to 7, and then until 7:30 we have networking. So we'd love to see you there. And yeah, there's a flyer on your desk. So
thank you. Anybody else? All right, we'll do our door prizes. We'll start somewhat apropos here with a reusable water bottle, which you can fill up with this bucket here. All right, this goes to Kaylee Mack. Yeah. All right, next up we have a return ticket to Good Morning Truckee, and that goes to Ernie Grossman, who was going to return anyways, but now you're really incentivized.
Well, I'm going to buy a lottery ticket today.
All right, Jan, you are up for the puzzle. Life is good. Once you're off council, you can get into puzzling, right? All right, and last up we have a journal. Where's this from? I don't know. Nice little Welcome Center journal, and that will go to Jenny Kendrick. Jenny Kendrick. All right, everybody, thank you so much for being here. If you have questions for any of our speakers or presenters, they'll hang around perhaps. And if not, we will see you in June. Enjoy your day, and that is a wrap. Wait, we should drink this water. Can we drink this water? I'm going to really test it. Yeah.